So let's have a look and let's see what if it works and how it works. So I've got my QGIS here. And most of the time when I start working with QGIS, I always go through the services plugin, and I always load one of the background layers, because it helps me a lot just to have some background, that I know whatever I do, where I am. And this is the one, of course, I work, well, I would say 99% of all my GIS work is in the Netherlands. So I use this one because, well, this one, of course, does only work in the Netherlands. It's Publieke Dienstverlening op de Kaart. It's a typical Dutch service. So let's have a look. As I said, there's a lot of data sets in here. Here you can see the extra tab, and I could have a look here at check services to see if there's something else. Oh, there's no newer version available. So here, this is always a place where you get your notifications, your warnings and everything. And I think out of the box, QGIS leaves those notifications and warnings open for 5 seconds and then closes them automatically. But that is the default setting. So this one is fine. So let's have a look. If I scroll down, you see here every layer has a number, and you see that there's 11,500 data sets. In PDOK, there's a lot of data. All the data that is here is on a national level. So if you have anything on a municipal level, for example, it's not in here. You cannot find it because it will only show the data that is nationwide. Now let's have a look at one of the services. For example, if we look at the buildings pot, and if you search here, you see that you got different service types. You see WMS here and WFS, and there are a lot of things regarding PONT with a specific service. So these ones, oh, I thought I'd select them, doesn't work that way, are from the cadastre. So this is buildings that are on the cadastral map. Interesting, but not what we're looking for. Here you see we have PANT from the BAG, the basisregistratie adressen en gebouwen, the base registration for, well, addresses and buildings. So let's have a look. And you see there's both WMS and there's a WFS. And the difference between those WMS is that one is filtered and one is not filtered. Now there's a little bit of metadata here. Let's have a look if I can show you what's going on. It just says filtered, nothing else. If I want to get more into detail, I'll have to check the documentation for this data set. It's not in here. This is just a very short piece of metadata, nothing serious. So, but let's have a look. So if I add this service, it will come up with the buildings. However, nothing happens. Let's see what happens if I zoom in a bit. Is it working? I see something, getting tiles. Hey, there it is. And if I zoom out, getting tiles, it will give you something. But you see, it's kind of, and maybe it doesn't. I think there's a scale cap here at work. So at some levels you can see it, at some levels you can't. If I switch off the background map, you can see there's buildings. Now, let's see if we can identify anything here. Oops. I see that this identify button is blue. That means that I can identify things from this layer. In a WMS service, identify is optional. So some of the services are switched off. You cannot query them. In this case, I query the service and say, okay, what kind of building is this? And it will give you something Let's look at this. It has a a get together function. Yay! It's church. Great. You see where it is. This is where I clicked. You see the administrative surface of the building. So it's a 3,005 square meter building, and it's built in 1381, which is oddly specific, but it could be. I think it was built over a period of time of 100 years or so, but well, let's see. 1381. Other than this, I cannot do anything with a WMS. It is a ready-made map. I cannot do anything with it. I said I can do a little visualization with this one. Well, the only thing I can do, and that is if you press this paintbrush button, you see this one coming up. What I can do is I can make a grayscale out of it, but it's already gray, but I could make it grayer. And I can colorize it. So if I want my buildings to be a different color, I can, add some color to it. But it's kind of a post-processing thing and nothing else. I cannot, for example, say, okay, I want the buildings from before 1900 to be a different color than the ones from after 1900. So that is a WMS. If I look at the legend, this is the actual legend here. This is the legend image. That's all. Nothing you can do to change that one. So let's have a look at the WFS service. So here I've got the WFS, so that will bring the features. Let's have a look. So you see it builds up differently. And I don't see everything. Oh, it's still working. Is it still working? Yeah, sometimes these connections are a bit sluggish, and QGIS will wait for the service to give a complete answer. If it doesn't answer within, I think it is 60 seconds, it will stop the query and go on. But this is a good time to see if there's any questions so far.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions, Erik. I think one is interesting because it's directly linked to the VFS. Patrick is asking, and maybe he can explain himself, but he hasn't downloaded shapes but created his own by copy pasting the features of his area. I'm curious what he meant with that. So where from what does he copy it? Does he prepare them himself, or did he copy them from another layer?
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Here you see the request is stopped because it didn't give a complete answer, and now it's open again. Now I can.
Yeah. So Patrick is there. So Patrick, please explain your question. We have the VFS open. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in the train right now. Do you hear me?
No, we can hear you very well. Doesn't matter.
Okay. I actually used the edit function. So if you'd like to cut out a certain area from the pond, I just go to edit, next to project, go on. Oh, you don't have it. It's like paste. You have first to select a few features, of course.
Yep.
And then go on.
Select a couple of buildings or use this one. Yep.
Exactly. Then go back on edit and copy features. Yeah.
Yep.
You have to click on it and then go back on edit. Going back on edit, and you have to click on paste as, and then you can create a new shapefile out of it. It will take a little bit, like to cut out the buildings from the Westland. I took, I think, about 10 minutes of waiting time, but you have the layer, and it's selecting also the data set from the from
all the
from the
attributes.
table, so you still have, you still have the attributes. So it's kind of an easy way if you don't want to download the whole Netherlands shape file and to have just your area.
Yeah, that is true. That's one way of doing it. It works fine. One thing that I've noticed, and that is something I'm not very keen on at the moment, I don't really like, is that copying features from a service takes a lot of time these days. And that should not be necessary because you've got the actual data on your computer already. This data is now in memory in my machine. So I'm just curious on why this takes so long. It looks like it's having a go at the whole data set again to see if not, for example, something else has been selected somewhere else in the data set. So this feels to me like it's checking everything again.
Okay.
Okay,
your screen is frozen and we don't hear Patrick anymore, but maybe we can go back to Patrick's question, because I can imagine, and I see other questions about this as well, that it can be done in a more efficient way. Yeah. I mean, just selecting here with a rectangle or other means manually of a big area is, of course, not the way it should work with a GIS. So maybe it's good to explain how this can be done in a better way with selecting an whole area, let's say the Westland. Or another student also asked how to crop the area. I mean, that's the other way around. You can either crop an area, and probably that's the solution we can discuss here.
So there's another, if you look at the Bach services, there's another thing called Woonplaats, which is kind of cool. If you load this one, you can use that one to select your data as well. So for example, I'll check a very small one here. Come on, where we are. Ter Heide, for example, small part here in Westland. Just to give you an idea, you can use this as any data set. So you can color this or change this. You can label it with a single label, for example, as a Woonplaats. So here, you see which one is which. And you could say, for example, okay, I want to select something. I want to select all the houses in Ter Heide. So you got your service. Go back to let's go for blijfsobjecten, something else from the same registration. The verblijfsobject. You load this one. It will give you all the and we're going to do a little more with the verblijfsobject in bit. So okay, so if I select the Woonplaats, the area, select this area. Now I can also use, I think that what Patrick just told us to just copy and paste into a new layer, I think that one works well. This is another option and it works so now you can select more exact using borders of different, there's something called the processing toolbox. It is under processing toolbox. In my QGIS setting, I can switch between those two because I've docked them at the same place. And here, nearly every tool in QGIS is in this toolbox somewhere. So what I kind of do is I extract by location, and that will just copy or extract data from one data set that is interacting with another data set. So this is another thing you can do, extract by location to use the data.
And finally, you can also draw your own rectangle and use that as a standard standard border for your data. I think that's the question relating to how to crop it. You can draw objects. You can draw objects, or you can use existing borders So you can really use this one to select the data within that area.
Yeah. So if you have your project area definition, and you say, okay, let's select everything within this project area. Okay. So what I can do here now, so I'm really wondering if this is slowing down as well now. I can extract features from this surface that intersect with the other surface, in this case the woonplaats, and I need to use the selected features only. Now I'll just make this into a temporary layer, and we've also had some questions about temporary layer, and I'll explain in a bit. I'll just run this one and see, because it might take some time as well. I'm getting a bit worried here. Oh, that's okay.
Should be okay.
So a temporary layer, that's another thing we had some questions on. Temporary layers, whenever you close down QGIS, and close down also means when it crashes, but as soon as you close down, a temporary layer is gone. It is in the name, temporary layer, and it is really temporary. Okay, so this one is finished. It will remain open, so you can check the log what happened, and if it worked fine, and I see nothing in red here, so probably everything went fine. It took 28 seconds. These were the settings I used, so everything is still here up to when I close. So I've got something extracted here. I've got the, let's have a look. I'll just switch off the surface, and I see that I've got the data now locally here in my own, in the area that I wanted it to. But this is a temporary data set. A temporary layer you can recognize by this memory sign, which we always call the spider. That is, if you see a little spider crawling behind your data, that means that it's on a chip somewhere, but not on your memory. So temporary scratch layer only, it will give a warning if you mouse over it. Contents will be discarded after closing this project. Whenever you use a tool, for example, this one, if you don't actually point to a location, I want to store this data here, then it will give a temporary layer. So what I could have done when I was running this tool is save to GeoPackage or save to file, and you can pick a shapefile if you like. I prefer GeoPackage nowadays. And if you save this to a GeoPackage, you'll see you can put it on your desktop or something or somewhere else. And you've, I've got this one already, this GeoPackage. I can add it to this GeoPackage, and then it will ask you for a layer name. Verblijfsobjecten in Ter Heide. And now it will run, here you can see so don't just put a name here, always go through this button with the 3 points, and it will give you an exact location on where this one will come. So that is one thing I could have done, but I've already got the data here on my machine in a temporary layer. So if you have a temporary layer, you can always pick make permanent. And then it will ask you, okay, where do you want to save this layer? And then again, go to a file name, always use this one. Don't just type something in here, because you will have to give the full path. If you just put a name here, it will try to write it somewhere and you don't know where or when or what. So always go through the browse button and find your data. Okay, I'm not doing that now. So temporary data is temporary. There's another thing, and temporary data also means loss of data quite a lot of times, because you didn't make it permanent, you didn't save it, you didn't use it. So it's only for as long as you have the project open. But if I save the project, will it still be a temporary layer? Yes, it will be. So that means that next time you open the project, it will show you it had a temporary layer, but it's no longer there. So it will give you the entry in the layer panel, but it will not give you the data because the data was temporary. So you really have to make this permanent.